Yo, what's up, homies? Welcome to the channel, the Gentleman Syndicate channel. I appreciate all the love and support that I've been getting. But once again, it's not about me, it's about us and what we can do to grow. So, impromptu little thing. I've done a few videos over the course of a month and some change, and a lot of interviews, or a few interviews, I should say, and more to come. And, I wanted to take this time to kind of like unpack some of that stuff. A lot of these interviews and people that I talk to um, are people from my past and people that I've had some type of connection with. And, for me, it's powerful, right? I hope it's something that you all can take from, or, somebody that's been through something. But at the end of the day, for me, it's powerful because, there's not enough people, there's not enough OGs out there, G's, right? You know what I mean? Because eventually you're going to be an OG to somebody that's going to look up to you, good or bad. That's going to trust what you say and what you do. And the thing that I want to put out in this world and through this channel is that the focus is on what we as men can do for each other. Because the world out here now, they don't care. It's not about how you feel. It's not about what you think. It's not about none of that stuff. So, I just want to um, kind of unpack a little bit of that. I was recently asked to have a conversation. I wasn't even asked, honestly. It was kind of more like an opportunity came up, and I jumped on it. But I've talked about in the past about the homie who impacted my life, Derek, and his passing. And I just want to unpack some of that and how that was one of the biggest things that happened in my life that really impacted what I am today and how I became and how I got to this point. It didn't just, snap of a finger and wake up, right? But the homie, Derek, he was a big piece of my life after the fact. You know, Leading up to that point, we were tight, we were cool, we were homies. We would mess with the other homie who had OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder. We would mess with his chess pieces, in his room, move little pieces from here to there, switch his remote control from looking one way to looking the other way, and he would come out and just freak out. We loved it. It was funny. But that's who he was. He was a funny dude. We always had a good time. And so, you know, Derek was a funny, funny dude. And when I first met him, he had just got back from Afghanistan. And, like I was in the dorms at the time and I had just got married. So, me and him had linked up and connected, went out a couple times, hung out. We were on the same ship. And like he just had this persona about him that would you would just attach to, like it was just automatic, and he offered to help me a couple of different times, a few different times, right? Moving out and different things, and like I was like, oh, okay, this dude's cool, like what I mean, like he didn't have to, but that's just who he was, so like that's how we kind of got connected and how we really started like jiving. um when the night the incident happened, he wasn't even assigned to the station. He was at a different place. I'm a firefighter. For those that don't know, I'm a firefighter in the military, and the homie was killed. He was killed on duty in an unfortunate event, right? And I'll kind of just diving into that, kind of talk around it throughout my podcast with other people. But I figured I'd take this time to kind of just unravel some of it and unpack it so people understand where I'm kind of coming from. Because this is a place and a piece that started for me. Um, it was a long journey to get to where I'm at right now. Because where I'm at right now, I'm still in a dark place. I've got my own demons. I'm still fighting. But Derek was one of those things that opened my heart and my life to things that I never knew were going to be things in my life. So, love you, homie. Appreciate you. And, you're a true servant. You're a true servant leader. And, I'm choosing to take this time to pay it forward, I guess. So, but, the homie was, we have different stations at different bases where we're at. And so he was at another station. So this other kid who um, was learning how to drive the fire trucks, right? We have to get licensed in the military. We have to be licensed to drive a vehicle. His biggest fear, this kid that brand new to the station, brand new to firefighting, his biggest fear was driving a vehicle and, taking somebody's life driving a vehicle. So he never had a driver's license. People on shift, we knew it, but the people above us, right, who were calling the shot, so to speak, none of that matters, right? Because they're at the top. They don't hear the story from the bottom, blah, 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 right? But we knew that this kid that was his fear. And so one day we're training, right? Like during that day, and Derek was such a funny dude, right? Like, so I believe it was the day before the incident happened, him and his homie, like one of his best friends, they went out and got a tan. But the tan that he got, like they got fully nude and he got sunburned everywhere. I mean, full tilt, head all the way down to the toe, butt crack and all, fully nude. And so I remember when we, got on shift the next day, whatever, I remember we was doing training that day and we typically consolidate to one area, and I remember making fun of him. Like, bro, how you gonna get sunburned everywhere? And you know what I mean when I say everywhere. And I remember that day I was like dropping my finger on his neck, just being like, hey, bro, like, oh, you see my little finger dick print on you, right? And he was like, oh my God, he was acting all weird, right? It was funny. It was funny. We always joke like that. And that was that day. And he was at a different station. So we were joking, right? And then they finally left after the training. And then come time where we needed to do more training. And he decided to leave the station that he was at to come to the station with this other kid who needed the training. So he volunteered to leave the busy station. When I say busy as a firefighter, I mean like we get a lot of calls, or we get a lot of experience dealing with trauma. And he volunteered to leave that station to come over and teach this kid how to drive these big fire trucks. And to give you an understanding of who he was, that's what he was. He was willing to forego the glory, so to speak, quote unquote, of getting the experience and being the best that we can, right? And being able to utilize those skills to do that, to humble himself enough to be able to come over here and try and train this kid. And this kid ended up driving the vehicle. He never had a driver's license before he joined the military. The military forced him to get his driver's license. And he ended up crushing the homie. So it happened at my station. I was in the kitchen at the time. And I remember hearing, so as firefighters, right, we get these tones, and like I wake up still to this day, right? Like if something happens or a noise happens, the first thing that happens when I wake up is it's like I'm full of adrenaline, because for us, we're trained to hear doo doo doo, or doo doo doo, right? Whatever tone it is for whatever station to let you know you have a call. And when you hear that tone, it kicks in a response, like a response to act, a service to call, so to speak. But I remember hearing that tone and being like, "Oh, it's a vehicle accident at the station." The building I'm at. I'm like, "What?" And then this kid comes walking in, and you can look on his face and you can see it, and it looked like he was a ghost. He was just pale, like white, and he just whispered, like, "I need help in the stalls." That's all he said. And I was like, "What? What's up?" Because I'm hearing the tone, vehicle accident. I'm hearing him say that, and then it comes over again, and I just remember, all right, whatever, fool. And I got up and I started running, and I ran out, and I didn't understand it, but these trucks that we drive are big, especially in the military. We drive very big trucks, and the tire that pinned him between the vehicle and the column was approximately like 5.5 feet tall, and but what happened was, when I go out in the stalls, I didn't know who it was. I just saw somebody like laying there, you know, stuck between the stall and the tire. And as I'm rolling up, then I start realizing, oh shit, I think it's the Hummy. And I remember the first thing that I did, I slid up to him on my knees, and I started, like, dabbing his forehead because he had this huge gash on his head. I started dabbing his forehead and whispering to him, like, "Hey, I'm gonna get you out, brother. Like, I'm here for you. I'm gonna get you out." Almost like a little mama bear would do to their baby bear that got hurt, right? You know what I mean? Like, I went into this mode that I'd never been in. Like, I'm so used to this stuff. Um, I'm EMT, all this other stuff, right? I didn't understand it, and then, like, after talking to him for some bit, because, like, I was in shock with who it was and what he meant to me. That, like, all I could do was just be like, "Bro, I'm here." I'm just dabbing his forehead because, like I said, his forehead had opened up and you could see inside. And it, like, really, really messed me up for a long time. Still to this day. But and then something hit me, like, snap out of it. So I snapped out of it, and something just took over me. It wasn't me. It was something other than me. That's all I can say. Like, because, like, I had so much emotion attached to him when I seen him. Like, I don't think I could have ever snapped out. You know what I mean? But, like, in my job as a firefighter, we're taught to respond and react. Well, we're taught to respond, not react, right? Because reacting means you're not prepared. Responding means you're prepared. In my world, at least how I think. I don't know how the other people think, but going through that, in he was pinned between a column and a vehicle tire, and his body was in that space. So basically, the kid who never had a driver's license, that my homie decided to come over to teach him how to drive, ended up crushing him between the vehicle and the pillar. And his body was in a space about like that, and I remember looking down his body and just being like, what the fuck? Like, how? You just start racing in your mind. I remember seeing his face. I remember what he was doing. I remember looking at him, and he didn't have much left in his mouth, right? It was like somebody just punched him with, a sandbag full of metal bolts or something, right? And knocked out all his teeth. And Yeah, I remember what he kind of did, and I won't get into details, but I remember what he told me, and he was like, "Man, I'm not gonna be pretty no more." But he didn't say, "Man." He's like, "I'm not gonna be pretty anymore." And I remember thinking, like, "Fuck, that's Derek." You know what I mean? It was like that realization. Like I started connecting it all. Like that's the homie, right? Like fuck. And I was like, "Man, I'm gonna get you out, brother. Like I'm here. I got you." You know. Uh, it took us 30 minutes to get him out. He was still alive that whole time. Still talking to him. We're running around trying to figure out how to get him out, what we got to do, blah, blah, blah. There's different theories of what to do. But in reality, he was pinned, in the truck that had pinned him was the truck that was keeping him alive. So I had grabbed his hand and said, "Derek, I need you to grab my hand." He grabbed my hand and he squeezed my hand. And I was like, "Thanks, brother. I got you. I'm going to get you out." I remember letting go, trying to figure out what we got to do. Coming back, I'm like, "Derek, hey man, give me your hand, bro. Give me your hand." Grabs my hand, and I was like, "Hey man, I need you to squeeze." He squeezes my hand again. Um, and I was like, "Brother, I love you, man. I got you." Because what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to understand that he's still with me. Every time I said his name, he would, perk up, even no matter, despite all the pain, despite what was going on, he was pinned, he was stuck, right? He's having extreme blood loss. Blood is everywhere. His blood is so, I was so close to his blood that I can basically taste it. It's almost as if he like spit his blood in my mouth. Like I remember the smell of iron, and I remember being so close to that and how traumatic it was, and how, like, your feet are typically, aligned like this. Well, one of his feet was like this, right? It was like, one foot was backwards and one foot was forward. So he had palletofemoral fractures, right? And um, so we're going around and we're trying to figure out how to do this and what to do. Honestly, didn't know what to do. I mean, I knew what to do, but it's just there's different things. There's different, you know, hierarchies of how to do things. I can't just do what I want to do because as a firefighter, right? It's almost like you kind of get approval on certain things depending on what you're doing. And this was something that was more of a rescue thing. And I remember, in between this last time that I talked to him, or I asked for his name, right? I said Derek. I remember like looking around and just being like feeling alone. And there's so many people around, but I remember just feeling alone. Like I was so in the moment of what it was. I was so focused on the situation. I remember somebody had grabbed a little forklift, and our trucks, they weigh 50, 60, 70, 80,000 pounds. And I remember at one point they had pulled up a forklift and they were trying to push the truck, right? Because his body's in a space that's like that. They're trying to push the truck. I remember when we all sat there and we looked, hoping, praying in our minds, right? Like this is what's gonna get him out. I remember hearing the tires screeching. And like it was like somebody had like went right into your soul and pulled it all out. You know what I mean? Like it was like somebody had ripped out all hope, all prayers, all everything was just like boom. Because we were betting that this was going to be something that we could use. We could leverage this forklift to help push the truck. And all you heard was the tires screeching across the ground, because the ground was like, it wasn't like corrugated, right? It was like smooth, and you just hear. And I remember like the heart sinking. I remember so much about how hard that was to hear that, to hear those squeals, and like how disappointed the person was when they got out of that truck, out of that forklift, and it's like, I don't know, Derek is still here. And at that point, other people had showed up too, and they're holding C-spine and stuff. And I remember the last time I said, Derek. That's all I said. I said, Derek. He raised his arm up, and I remember looking down and just being like, fuck yeah, brother. Because in my mind, I was like, he knows I'm talking to him. He knows, he's still cognizant. He's still here. As shitty as it is, to see what I'm looking at and understand how crazy the position he's in, how messed up he is, how much pain he might be in, how much blood loss. Like, there's so much blood that was coming out of him. And I remember being like, yeah, brother. And I like went to grab his hand. I didn't say nothing. He just squeezed it. Like, he knew what I was wanting. He knew what I needed. And that was what Derek was. He knew what everybody around him wanted. He knew what everybody needed. And he was always there. I always think, even now, like, my role was to kind of like try and save his life, and I beat myself up every day and all the time. And I went through so much pain through this shit. But Derek was there for me. At the end of his life, he was there for me. Telling me what he said, so I'm not going to be pretty anymore, spitting out blood out of his mouth. So the last time when I was like, Derek, and he just raised his hand and squeezed my hand. I was like, thanks, brother. I remember looking over and trying to talk to some other medic. And I remember, like, I'm standing over him, and then, his body's like this. And then I remember feeling his hand just doing this, right? And I look back down, and I realized that his arm is broken right here, 90 degrees this way. It's like slumped over. So his arm is broken right here, slumped over, just doing this on my arm. And I remember at that moment, like, how I felt, and I felt like I failed. I felt like I missed it. I did my decap BTLS. For those that know, decap BTLS is what we do. It's a moniker that we use when we're talking and we're checking from the head down, or you're doing your blood sweep, right? Like, we're checking everything from the head all the way down: deformities, contusions, abrasions, punctures, lacerations, right? Blah, 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 whatever. And I was like, man, I missed it. I had been grabbing that same arm twice prior to that. And then that last time, he just, boom, grabbed it. And then all of a sudden, I just started feeling this and looked down. His arm was like this, but the rest from here up was just, boom, slumped over. And it was something that I really never got over, because I felt like I caused him more pain. I felt like I missed it. I felt like I wasn't on top of my game. I felt like I couldn't do anything right, like, and it haunted me. It still haunts me to this day, It still haunts me to this day. So we ended up getting him out, and it took us about 30 minutes, and I'm not going to get in all the weeds. I think there's an interview later that we kind of talk about some stuff, but it took us 30 minutes to get him out, and he ended up dying later. but I never stopped working. I was still at the same station. He was killed in the in the bay right behind my truck, basically. I remember trying to pick up his teeth. I remember everything, man. I remember the smell. I remember what he said. I remember how it felt. I remember how hard he grabbed my hand. But what I couldn't remember was the fact that, and what I couldn't see was the fact that, like, in that time that I thought I was supposed to be there for him, he was actually there for me. And that's one of the hardest things to accept. One of the hardest things to like see and feel and come to terms with. Still not, still not fully up to terms with that, man. Like that's hard. That's tough. But it affected everything in my life. Yeah, I ended up taking him home in a closed castle, which I did not want to do. But his mom knew I had talked to him. I was one of the last firefighters to talk to him, so she really wanted to know. Somehow the military made it happen. Went all around the world. I remember when his mom asked me if I wanted to see him one last time. We had to have a closed casket because what happened, like, happened from here all the way down, right? Like it was as if like the truck hit him and then just ran over his body or something. Like it was crazy that how much damage that was done to his body. And I remember his mom wanted to have an open casket, and she was talking to the dude who was doing the facial reconstructive surgery to him. And she didn't agree with him, but he wanted to, get somebody who knew him. I remember the person I was with, I was like, hey, I want to see Derek one last time because he's at peace. In my mind, I was making up like, okay, he's quiet. He's not screaming. He's not yelling. Like he's not coughing. There's no blood coming out. Like he's done. Like it's over. I remember saying like, I want to see him. And then that day before, and then that morning, me and his friend, our roles reversed because he didn't want to see him. And then that morning he was like, I want to see him one last time because he wasn't there. He missed it. So he always holds that. And he was gone when the coroner was like, hey, I want to talk. I think he was getting food or something. We need to have this happen, and I had just switched. I was like, I don't want to see him. I don't want to see the homie. Like I can't. Like I'm too distraught. I'm too distraught. And but anyways, I ended up having to see him in that closed casket, and giving validation whether he should have a closed casket or open casket. And that was one of the connection points of what we do as firefighters in the military, or just in general being in the military, to like what made him. Now I'm starting to understand his family and what impacted him to be who he was. And it broke me. It broke me so bad. What the nightmares, the night terrors, the many sleepless nights, the can't eat ketchup, can't look at ketchup. And I've seen so much trauma prior to that. Like I was used to seeing trauma, I never seen it as close as I did, how I did. And I remember when his mom asked if I wanted to see her son one last time. And I said, ma'am, I think this is for you and your family. I want to be excused. And I remember hearing the wailing and the screaming and how much it pierced my soul. It was it was something you just never forget. you feel responsible, you know, you feel like you're part of this, and it hurt. It hurt a lot. Dad didn't talk to us for a couple of days. And then when he finally did, right, he took us into this little like outhouse, right? There was this thing that him and his son had built, him and Derek built. And everything that him and his son did in their lives together as father and son, that was his only son, was in that room. And he started to share that. For those that have boys or those that have sons, can't imagine what I'm talking about. But like, man, I was not ready for none of that. I was not prepared. Nobody told me this is what it was and how heavy it would be. But it was something I had to go through as part of my journey. And so, like, you know, I don't want to sound all dark or whatever for whatever reason, but you know, how I got to this part of this channel and what I'm doing now and what I'm trying to do, I guess, is I'm trying to, you know, link that voice up, man, like of support, because I went to people that I trusted and I loved and, you know, saw as mentors, and they couldn't help me. And I just took it all on my own. And, you know, it led to a downfall in my life that I can't, you know, I can't take back anymore. You know, I'm divorced. I got 3 kids. You know, their mother decided to take them to Germany. And, I'm left with an empty bag. It feels like, you know, I want to raise my kids. I want to be in their lives and stuff. I want to be able to at least have the memories that the homie's dad had with his son, right? Like, and that's been taken from me. And a lot of that pain that I go through with that stems from, you know, this incident. And like I said before, I've seen a lot of stuff before and it never bothered me, you know. I wasn't no G or wasn't no gangster before I joined the military, but like I did some stuff. I ran what I did what I did and stuff. And I've been through some things, you know, I won't talk about it on camera, but I wasn't bothered by, you know, seeing death. I wasn't bothered by seeing, you know, GSWs, gunshot wounds, amputations, none of that stuff. It never really phased me. But when it became personal, that was a whole nother level of something I wasn't experienced to. Um, so, you know, I guess what I'm saying is, you know, I wanted to kind of open up some of the basis of how I got to this point, and a big part of that was because of Derek. Derek gave his life as a firefighter to train another firefighter who ended up killing him. And I think that the art of and the thought and the belief of what we do as firefighters has been lost. And then same thing with men. What we do as men and how we do it as men has been lost. And it's time for us to recollect and take action on what it is that we are to do. Our whole role, our whole job as men, what Derek represented is sacrifice. My job is to sacrifice for my kids, to give up time with my kids, to grow, you know, them financially, to give them the things that they want. Derek gave up his life to train this kid who ended up killing him. Sacrifice. You know, there was other people that could have stepped up, but they didn't. You know, I'm not here to talk about all that. I'm just saying, like, everybody has an opportunity, and this is that opportunity in the platform that I chose to you know, be the king of the hill on, to say, you know, you're not alone. We're not alone. You know, when I was taking it on alone, it felt like I was alone. But I had certain people, David Lund, Rob Jarvis, Nathan Milan, Jacob Scott, throughout the times, AJ Shin, Timothy Sherrod, the list, my dad, my mom, my brother, the list can go on and on and on. Philip Medaya, it can just keep going. But I couldn't see it. I was so internally focused that I couldn't externally understand that. The only thing I can control in my life was my output. And the thing that hurt me the most about what Derek, the little story I talked about with Derek, and I didn't even go into everything, right? I didn't get deep into it. But the thing that messed with me the most was that I lost the understanding that the only thing I could have controlled about that was my output. What happened happened. I couldn't control my output. I didn't understand that I could control my output. And that's what I'm trying to tell you is, as fathers, as men, sometimes when the world takes things from you and strips you of your authority as a father, which is, I feel like it's happened to me, your responsibility as a father, which I feel like it's happened to me as well. Sometimes the only thing you can do is control your output. And for me, my output to you all, the viewers, is to tell you, what I'm saying, you're loved, man. Much love. Aloha. You know what I mean? I talked to some people from Hawaii today, call me, and, so much love out there, man. Like, you're not alone. And, I hope that this might be a message of hope that, you can pull on and be like, hey, man, like, there's somebody out here that's been through it, doing it, gone through it, tap into that, man. Like, turn that pain into a process of empowerment, turn that pain into progress, build on it, leverage it. And that's what I say. So, again, mahalo. And, I'm going to sign off, appreciate the support. And, like and subscribe to the channel. Like I said, I'm here. The homies that know me, you know what I mean? So, like, I appreciate everything that y'all do in support of everything. So, shoots, mahalo, namaste, whatever. I've been all around the world. Who knows? I ain't gonna do the African version for you, mother. I think that's what it is. Maybe later though. But anyways, appreciate it. Shoots.